Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Playbook for Performance podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Corden. My whole reason for being is to make work fun again. And this month, the theme of the podcast is talking about what I did not anticipate as parallels between a coaching culture, which you know I've written the book about, and preventing polarization. So probably 6 months ago, I got this feeling that I needed to address the situation about polarization. It was making work very unpleasant. It was causing people to exit the workforce. It was not fun for most of us. It was an unspoken tension, or it was outspoken. And I heard lots of stories from leaders, from managers who would talk about people on their own team that would not talk to each other. They actually would talk to other peer employees and tell them that this happened. And I went, oh my gosh, why are you dealing with this? Well, we'll find out more here in a moment. But this week, we're going to be talking about conclusions from the research on polarization and what we learned between these qualitative interviews and the survey. So, loads of organizations are devoted to hosting discussions based on polarization and overcoming polarization. There are groups that are devoted to politics, getting conservatives and liberals together to talk about what they have in common, how to host meaningful, respectful discussions, avoiding attacks. There are organizations that are hosting a discussion in academia, making sure that people are being confronted with opposite ideas, because that's when learning takes place, and how to overcome these feelings that people are having about being injured or offended, etc. That is disrupting true learning. And there are other organizations, and I assure you that they are doing a better job with their research than I have. And so I'm delighted to be able to lean on them and some of the conclusions that they have come to as well. We also know that the Great Resignation and Great Reflection helped polarize people. Not necessarily intentionally, but it was this whole concept of there's so much background noise going on. I am going to reduce the number of points that I need to think about in order to operate correctly. I need to do what's best for me in order to cope. And so we not only call it the Great Resignation, but we call it the Great Reflection. The first time that I was really confronted with this idea of really reflecting on what's most important was probably 30 years ago when I was introduced to the book, Your Money or Your Life. And it basically had you calculate everything that you earn, minus taxes, minus the second car the family had, minus the insurance, all the things that you do in order to work, insurance, whatever it might be, work wardrobe that you wouldn't wear any other time. And once you deducted all of that, then you determine, well, this is what I'm really earning per hour. And then once you realize that, oh, I thought I was making $50 an hour, but I'm really making $21 an hour, you would determine, is this $21 I'm about to spend on a movie ticket and popcorn really worth 1 hour of my life? That causes people to reflect pretty significantly. And I think people did something very similar during the pandemic when they were working from home, for those that had the chance to work from home. And they decided, some of these things are not that important to me, including some relationships. So when we talk about the polarization of relationships, we're talking about an issue that may have come up that people disagreed upon. And then depending on whether they were going to fight about it or whether they were going to fold about it, they really just went into this mode of kind of cutting people out of their life. Didn't have to be acrimonious. It could be something that was just they stopped calling. And when it comes to my research about are people willing to reunite, that's the working title of the book right now, moved from a new dialogue to reunited. Most people are not willing to do the work. They find that they need to be very close. I would say it's a first degree family member, parent, child, sibling, spouse that they would do the work for. I think that in addition to that, they have to be supported and urged by others. So let's say it's a father-daughter separation of sorts. The mother, the brothers, the grandkids all need to urge and support that reuniting. I think the real opportunity is to invest in the prevention of polarization, because then we're not dropping off friends because of a simple disagreement, and we're not having this painful separation with family members and friends due to these disagreements. So I would love to hear if you find that you're willing to do the work, but someone else isn't. I would love to find out if you had a positive kind of support network that encouraged and helped support the reunification of family members, because I haven't found any like work colleagues or friends that are willing to do the work just yet. I'd love to hear if that was there. And I'm hearing that managers are fatigued. There's already enough on their plate having to think about all of the policies and conditions that are going on. They don't have time to babysit, two staff members that are polarized. And in my informal interviews with people, they said, yeah, I would just give that to HR. And to me, it's a performance issue. Part of this is being able to get along with your colleagues and have conversations and have healthy debate and things like that. And I'm sure HR is quite busy as well. But in some cases, they would say, well, if you can't learn to get along, we're going to let you go. And so what does that mean? Especially when we are so challenged for talent right now. So those are some of the conclusions that have come up. I would like to know if you are hearing these same things. But I also want to point out that all of these things that we're talking about that prevent this polarization are the same attributes that are present in a coaching culture. So, number one, are you willing to question your beliefs? So back in, I think it was 2005, I did some research with my colleagues. I interviewed tons of coaches. I asked them, and we tracked by the level of their training, their number of hours that they had been coaching, by the level of the clients that they were coaching. And it was unanimous. The number one thing that affected the coachability of a person was, were they willing to question their beliefs? And if they're not, then they're uncoachable. And I think that is the same thing when it comes to reuniting with others. If they're not willing to question their beliefs, or if they are not willing to question their beliefs, they're probably more likely to be polarized about issues. So the other piece is being curious. How did it get like this? Where did it come from? What was the first step? When did you notice this? Things like that. And the whole attitude that people come first. People come first. Those are some of the basic tenets. And in our subsequent podcast this month, we'll be talking about some of these principles that are preventing polarization, that are similar to a coach culture. So for your field work this week, I would love to know, how do you find yourself aligning with the research? During the Great Reflection, did you tighten your circle of friends, colleagues, family member interaction to people of similar values. People who voted your way, approached the pandemic the same way, etc. Just to preserve energy and reduce a little bit more of the background noise. Did you concentrate your investments? So did you double down on the things that you really valued, whether it was your health, your mental health, your hobbies, things like that? And did you find new ways to block out background noise? I've been very surprised that a large number of people that I interviewed just said, I just stopped watching the news. It was getting me all wound up and I couldn't do anything about it. So that was one of the forms of background noise that people noted. Others named Facebook discussions or reducing who they followed or whose posts they could see, because some people tended to be more polarizing in the posts that they made. So I would love to hear, please drop us a note at podcast@shawnacorden.com. We would love to hear from you, your comments, your questions. If you have an organization that is eager to prevent this polarization, you find yourself sliding down that slippery slope and you want to have a moderated session, learn some of these coaching skills for leaders to prevent that, I'm happy to help. If you have a very important relationship that you would like to use coaching to repair and reunite, I'm very eager to try these same methodologies with this. I love my therapy friends. I think they're great. Here's the challenge that I think is difficult for them, is that most people, when they go to marriage counseling, etc., they are looking for the therapist to side with one of the party to say, hey, this person needs to change their behavior because this is what they've been doing wrong in the past. That's one of the distinctions between counseling and coaching, is counseling's focused on the past. In coaching, we're all about the future. How can we fulfill potential? And what are the habits and behaviors that will support the desired outcome going forward? So if you have a close family relationship where you would like to repair that, I am very eager to see if we can apply these principles in coaching to help repair that. So if you're interested in that, please send us a message at podcast@shawnacorden.com. If you like this podcast, please share, tell your friends, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next week, take good care.